U.S. Energy Secretary Rick Perry has approved 6 secret authorizations by companies to sell nuclear power technology assistance to Saudi Arabia. RT correspondent Brigida Santos joins me now with the story. Brigida, before we go into too much detail, give me an idea what the story's about.
Perry has approved at least 6 Part 810 authorizations, which allow American companies to start working on nuclear power technology that can be transferred to a foreign government. Now, in this case, it would be transferred, hopefully, in their case, to Saudi Arabia. And that's because the kingdom is currently reviewing competing bids from companies in the United States, in Russia, and South Korea as Saudi Arabia gears up to build 2 nuclear power plants. Now, Saudi Arabia says that it's not going to announce the winner of these contracts until later this year. So until then, these authorized U.S. companies are going to be working merely to convince the Saudis to choose American products like nuclear reactors and other services over those of their competitors. However, the authorizations have come under scrutiny because they were carried out in secret. Now, Perry claims secrecy is necessary to protect the company's proprietary information, but normally nuclear authorizations are disclosed to the public. At the time of taping, that has yet to happen.
Okay, first of all, let's go back and talk about this guy a little bit, this Rick Perry. This guy is not exactly, the sharpest tool in the shed. This is the guy, if you remember, he couldn't name 3 agencies that he said he wanted to abolish. He wanted to abolish 3 agencies. They asked him, well, what are the agencies? He couldn't even name the agencies that he wanted to abolish. He thought the voting age in the United States was 21. He called Social Security a Ponzi scheme. So I guess what I'm getting at here, Brigida, this is the guy who wants to sell nuclear technology to Saudi Arabia, technology that has never been disclosed to them. They don't need it for power. They've got all the power they need. They've got oil. They've got deserts for wind power. They've had solar power. It's not about power. They want to build arms. They want to build weapons. And so this genius says, yeah, this is a guy we're allowing to make a decision like this. What's the reaction by U.S. lawmakers about this character making decisions like this? What's the reaction?
Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are worried that if the U.S. wins this bid, Saudi Arabia will develop nuclear weapons and spawn a nuclear arms race in the Middle East unless proper safeguards are implemented. And that's because Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman, has previously said that his country will develop nuclear weapons if its rival Iran does. And now that the Trump administration has pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal, MBS's stated plan is not completely out of the realm of possibility. Now, of course, the Iranians have not, according to reports, violated terms of the agreement, even though it's been tossed out. So it's also unclear whether the kingdom is even going to agree to American anti-proliferation standards or whether the U.S. is even going to impose them this time around. Now, in the past, negotiations broke down because Saudi Arabia would not commit to rules that would ban uranium enrichment and other pathways to making fissile material for nuclear weapons. So if the U.S. does not impose safeguards on Saudi Arabia, it could result in all-out proliferation across the entire Middle East because no other country would be incentivized to follow those rules if Saudi Arabia isn't.
Well, what's this notion that they can't build what they want? We give them the technology, they're going to build it, they're going to sell it to their pals in the Middle East, and we are going to have a very, very scary arms race there in the Middle East. And again, I come back to Rick Perry. This guy is an absolute goof. I mean, he was a goof when he was running for president. He's been a goof since he was knocked out of the primaries. And we're allowing him to make decisions without stepping in and saying, no, we're not going to sell the Saudis this technology. The other part of it was what you raised. When have we ever been able to really influence what the Saudis want to do? It's the worst dictatorship on the planet almost. And so this dictatorship, when we've said, hey, can you work with us on oil prices? No, we can't. Can you work with us as far as getting along with this country or that country? No, we can't. So all of a sudden, they now have nuclear weapons, and we're supposed to say we're going to be able to negotiate with them. Look, let me ask you this. Representative Brad Sherman, a Democrat, is asking Secretary of State Mike Pompeo to release the names of the companies that got the approvals by the middle of April. It's a very good question. Very important information we should have. We need to know who's tied up to who's making money on this deal. How likely is it that we're going to get that information, Brigitte?
It's extremely unlikely, especially since the companies are still in competition against those firms in Russia, China, and South Korea. But it's not just Democrats, I want to mention, that are concerned. As I said, Republican senators are also worried about U.S.-Saudi negotiations. And in fact, Senators Marco Rubio and Bob Menendez have called on the Government Accountability Office to review the Trump administration's nuclear power negotiations with the kingdom over reports alleging that some were conducted without federal oversight that's required by the Atomic Energy Act. The House Oversight Committee has now opened a formal investigation into the plan, which involves a group known as IP3. The congressman also noted that the Department of Energy is leading these so-called 123 nuclear cooperation agreements rather than the State Department, which is very unusual and inconsistent with previous nuclear agreement negotiations. And that's where Perry comes in, because he's always been a big energy guy, oil in Texas, so it's all very questionable.
Brigitte, the very idea of Rick Perry having anything to do with nuclear energy on its face is terrifying. Thank you for joining me, okay?